Good early Wednesday morning, everybody. Meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center with a tornado warning now in Plato about 4:30. Getting the circulation to above, tighten up pretty quickly here into toward Marion County and is tracking in toward Alachua County as we go over the storm relative velocity. You're seeing though maybe not quite as tight as it was a moment ago. These can pop up really quickly in this situation. You see as we kind of scrub between the different images, a possible tornado is near Reddick right now though. Let's check for tornado debris. It'd have to go pretty high to be able to see it. And right now, inconclusive. I would say probably not, but it is showing a little bit of something here considering the height on this. So can't completely rule out something trying to evolve in terms of a debris signature. But a tornado warning now, a first in our area from Elsa. I know the tornado watch actually doesn't include Alachua County, just Marion and Levy at this point, but that'll probably change pretty soon. As again, now seeing an actual warning with a circulation spinning up pretty quickly here and continuation there of the tornado warning still as we talked about that possible tornado located near Spar and there's Citra there, but also an update warning down in the south has expired out of our area in Hardy County, so that's some good news for them as we're going to be watching different areas of spin here throughout the day today with Elsa, which has been downgraded to a tropical storm, but again a tornado warning, the imminent threat right now. Looking down toward Ocala, we're going to watch this cell because the Weather Service has been talking here in the chat. They're starting to now see a greater vertical shear spreading northward across Marion and Alachua and seeing some of the rotational signatures with the discrete cells. So brief tornadoes possible in this area. And right now, a possible tornado near I-75 in northern Marion County. So need folks to take shelter here around Reddick. This possible tornado moving up toward McIntosh, Micanopy here. So go ahead and get as many walls between you and the outside as possible if you're in this area, because again, there is a possible tornado in the vicinity here. So I just want to go ahead and take those tornado precautions. I'm watching things very carefully for sure as I'm going between some things behind the scenes right now so we can give you the latest information to keep you safe. Again, in a tornado situation, you want to seek shelter inside a sturdy building. Get as many walls between you and the outside as possible, and to protect yourself from flying debris, put on a bicycle helmet. So again, a possible tornado down here in northern parts of Marion County. Seeing that circulation within our system. Getting those alerts, of course, automatically if you follow me over on Twitter at Cloud_WX, but your phone might have waken you up as well. It might have got you out of bed there. It might have got you out of bed to try to go ahead and take those tornado precautions. So I'm going to be watching this situation carefully. Let me go ahead and switch on over to a different radar right now and look at current rotation tracker. Excuse me. We're tracking things carefully here around Reddick. And you can see it wasn't all that tight on rotation tracker, but we're on the edge of the radar, so it's hard to know exactly what might be reaching the surface. So the Weather Service in Jacksonville does have to kind of err on the side of caution here with this tornado warning in place. So I'm seeing a possible circulation there as we're looking toward areas of Marion County. So again, getting back on in there right now, watching that very carefully here. Again, go ahead and take your tornado precautions. It's weaker and broader in nature right now, but we're going to continue to watch things very carefully here. In this tropical setup, you can get these spin-ups to happen pretty quickly. So I just got to go ahead and take those tornado precautions here in this area in north central Florida. I'm going to go ahead and look on over at some of other products right now. We're seeing some upscale growth in here, so that's something to watch out for. Maybe the storm's still pretty nasty overall, and some wind energy could be occurring here closer toward the surface. If we're not even seeing a tornado, that wind energy at least could be a hint with this little area of sour axe. And not really seeing any lightning right now. You wouldn't generally see that in tropical setups. That's some good news at least. But again, watching things carefully, our system overall has kind of weakened some though, so that's some good news. I do see some more updates coming in. It looks like as we go on over now toward our GeoEarth computer, you can see we have a new tornado warning toward parts of Lake County, a possible tornado showing up there as we're getting not too far away, it looks like, from Silver Lake. So this is moving north at about 35 miles an hour. This possible tornado there west and really south of Eustis, southeast of Leesburg. So watching this carefully there, and this will be moving into our area pretty soon. That's why I bring it up. This is moving north at 35 miles an hour, so this circulation holds together in Marion County pretty soon. So the Weather Service in Jacksonville would have a decision to make here, whether to extend a warning. Right now, I'm not seeing a lot of circulation, but sometimes you won't get that in this tropical type setup. So I just have to be mindful here of what can happen. A possible tornado in Lake County could be moving inward parts of Marion County pretty soon. So got to go ahead and be on guard for that. I think we're going to take a quick break in the coverage. We have 2 tornado warnings, one here just outside of our area. The one, of course, is in the viewing circle. Watching a spin here as we're looking near Reddick. So I just got to be mindful of this threat here. Got to be mindful of this potential as it does move in toward Alachua County over the next little bit. Not seeing as strong of circulation, but things can kind of pulse up, pulse down in this scenario here. As we look at some of our tornado parameters, we're not seeing a whole bunch, but as we go back on over now toward another mode of our Doppler radar, you do see the storm system actually might be trying to organize a little bit more again. Kind of crazy. I know last night we were talking how things look pretty nasty here overall. A hurricane as it was there, and then it had weakened on down, and probably going to still stay a tropical storm at this point, but it has gotten some more organization back, at least within radar, it seems like to me. As we go on over to the infrared satellite imagery now, you'll be able to see what's going on. We have a lot of this action displaced on the eastern side, as we've been talking about. So just got to be on guard with this. As we get back on in, though, you see our storm system, and again, the tornado warning, though, in play. 4 parts of Marion County. We started our extended coverage here in a little bit, but we have to cover this tornado threat right now, so that's what we're on. Trying to keep you, your friends, and your family safe and informed. So continuing to watch this, we'll be back in just a couple minutes. Back here in the Weather Center now, continuing this tornado warning coverage. The tornado warning for parts of Alachua and Marion still is in effect until 4:30, but they're talking in the chat says, and as we've noted, the rotational signature has weakened, but it could spin up again. The storm's east of Flemington, moving off toward the northwest now. I know in these bands you'll kind of have a little bit of a turn in that movement, so that's something I always watch. And then another thing with the storm not being as organized, we sometimes can get a higher tornado threat, even though the winds might not be quite as strong with it, since the storm, as we talked about earlier, if you're just kind of waking up, is no longer a hurricane. And at this point, we're not expecting it to strengthen into one. The hurricane warning still does remain into effect here as we're looking off toward the coastal areas. So that's something, of course, to keep in mind here as we're looking there. That hurricane warning, the latest update at the 2 a.m. did keep that in play there. As we were looking from Egmont Key to the Steinhatchee River, but that could end up getting dropped here. But still, tropical storm warnings in play for a wide area, so we have to be mindful of that here, of course. And I have some of our other software showing this thread as well. I know we're just watching the tropical storm warning go all the way to the area there as we're looking from Baker into Duval, from Nassau into Duval, Bradford to Clay, Alachua into Putnam. You kind of get the idea here with the threat. So going to be watching this here as the border of the threat here really is, as we're looking towards some of those spots that I was just referencing, because they did drop the tropical storm watch. They hadn't I did the weather service in Jacksonville for parts of Clay, parts of Duval. So that's some good news at least. But we're going to keep watching, keep tracking things here this morning. Again, the reason we're on right now is for a tornado warning here, and we are seeing another circulation maybe try to get going near Ocala, which is not great. Got to be mindful of that here. Got to be mindful of that potential. You can see some of that brighter green sewing on up if I switch you on over actually to our other mode of the Doppler radar. Seeing some of that near Ocala, though. We just had that update. The last frame was a little bit more apparent and so in that, so got to watch for something to try to evolve there, pretty similar to Spot. I'm going to be trying to hit a sweet spot in terms of some of that shear here, trying to take advantage of the overall tornado parameters this morning as we're looking toward parts of Marion and Alachua counties. So I'll go ahead and zoom back on out. We're watching things very carefully here this morning. Again, tornado warning in play. Switching between some of our different modes here, of course. Watching down towards Central Florida, maybe something trying to get going there, looking high up, but this is as we're looking around the villages, not too far away from there. A little circulation that the Weather Service in Melbourne did warn for, so got to be careful there as we're looking toward Lake County, a possible tornado over Lake Griffin, moving northwest at 25 miles an hour. So got to be watching to see if Jacksonville issues a warning now. Just got an update that they're keeping the warning to the north for now. This is as we're tracking a possible tornado near Cross Creek, or 11 miles northwest of Citra, moving northwest at 40 miles an hour. So we have to kind of bear that in mind here this morning for sure. Just watching this threat very carefully. Going ahead and zooming back on out now. We're going to keep you up to date here, of course, on what's happening across the area. You see some of that moisture starting to spread further up, some of that later rain spreading on up here into Bradford County now, Union County. Not seeing too much in the way of winds, so that's good news, of course, but we're keeping our eyes on everything for you here in the Weather Center. Again, tornado warning, the reason we're on. We're going to wait to come on to about 6 or so, and hopefully we'll be able to kind of reset things and do that. But right now we have to track this tornado potential in toward parts of Alachua and Marion counties. A possible circulation here in play, so just going to be keeping an eye on that, of course, here for you in the Weather Center around Micanopy, McIntosh, and then another spin here as we look down toward the south. So you see that here as we get toward areas around the villages, Fruitland Park, off to the east of those, really, but that's going to be moving into Marion County, so maybe around Weirsdale, give or take. Going to have to watch for something there, possibly. As we go back on up toward the north now, we're watching again a tornado warning situation as we get into toward parts of our area now. Depending on how things set up, I might end up pushing back that live coverage a little bit since we've already been on now this morning. Depending on how things go, we could end up getting more tornado warnings. Though, as the Weather Service has mentioned, that a warning from Lake County that side of the area could get extended into Marion, so this could last for a little bit if things don't go the right way, or we might be done here in about 5 to 10 minutes with the coverage. So for the time being, at least for this threat. Of course, all day we're going to be here in the Weather Center providing that special coverage in front of the wall. But right now, tracking the situation here with the storms down toward the south. The tornado warning still in play for parts of Alachua and Marion for another 4 minutes or so. So you just want to go ahead and take shelter and get as many walls between you and the outside as possible here in that area. That spin within the Doppler radar algorithm. Something to monitor, of course, as we're still tracking things very carefully for you here. Looking down toward the south, you see some of this rain as we're getting toward Inverness. That's going to be pushing on up here. You see that around Coleman as well. Again, the circulations, what we've been watching here, a couple different spins and even more spins trying to get going here and there. One will be southeast of Bellevue, another around Ocala, as we've been referencing. So we just have to be kind of mindful of this potential as we move the map around here. We're watching that carefully, keeping you up to date, of course. Right now, kind of in an odd spot on the radar to be able to see what's happening toward Micanopy, but we're not seeing a whole bunch, it doesn't seem. We just got to watch some of these other little areas because it seems like we've got a little bit more favorable in terms of tornado parameters in play now than we did earlier, as we were just talking about here. The Weather Service in Jacksonville was just talking about that as well. So again, that tornado warning continues for another 3 minutes as we're looking toward the Micanopy area. A possible circulation here within the Doppler radar algorithms. We're keeping you updated, keeping you safe here this morning. This is one of Elsa's threats. Of course, we have the wind threat. We have the threat of some storm surge towards Cedar Key, for instance. Also talking, of course, about the heavy rain threat, 3 to 5 inches possible, with isolated spots getting upwards of 8 inches. So we're going to be tracking all of that here for you, keeping you abreast of the situation in the Weather Center. Again, you see the tornado warning on the screen until about 4:30, which is another 2 minutes. Haven't got any word on they're going to extend it, but they had talked about a weakening circulation. So if I had to guess, I would guess they would drop this tornado warning, but these tropical setups can be kind of tricky here. So we have to be mindful of that potential here. This circulation could spin back on up. So we're going to be watching out for you here in the Weather Center, keeping you, again, up to date here. Watching different areas of spin within the Doppler radar algorithms as well. Looking down toward the south here, seeing the latest scans. We're starting to see something try to get going on near Ocala, so we got to watch out for that. The other circulation's completely falling apart, though, as we're looking toward Micanopy, it seems. But north of Ocala, really the north side of Ocala, seeing something trying to get going here around Northwest 17th Avenue and also Northwest 33rd Avenue. So we got to watch out there. Possible tornado trying to get going. You see a tornado warning in Lake County continuing, as we talked about. That could be moving into more Marion over the next little bit. So some different hazards down the line here to watch out for sure. Again, tornado warning in play as we get up toward the north here. Tornado warning as we get up toward the north, lasting for the next minute. We're watching that for you, of course. We're just going to keep an eye on everything with this setup in this overall tropical environment here. Let's look at some of these rainfall rates over the last hour or so. You'll be able to see some spots toward Levy County getting those to add on up some. So that's unfortunate here, as we need to be kind of mindful that we could start to see more flooding as the rain picks on up. As a new tornado warning has now been issued here for parts of Alachua and Marion until 5 a.m. A possible tornado located 7 miles west of Cross Creek or 11 miles northwest of Citra. So it looks like we'll go ahead and zoom back on in here toward this threat. Hasn't popped up on one of my systems here yet, so that's happened soon. But a new tornado warning has been issued now until 5 a.m. So we got to go ahead and be mindful here of this. Let's go on over. I think we just had that pop in just now. They've gone ahead and extended this around Micanopy. Didn't really see a lot there, to be honest, but they decided to extend it. The possible tornado moving northwest at 40 miles an hour. Severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado 7 miles west of Cross Creek or 11 miles northwest of Citra, moving northwest at 40 miles an hour. So I'm going to be watching out for this, of course, here in this area. It's over mainly rural areas of the indicated region. So that's south central Alachua, north central Marion, but we are talking about Flemington, McIntosh, and Micanopy in here. So got to be watching out for this threat there. I'm going to be tracking that, of course, here in parts of Alachua and Marion. You'll get this tropical setup sometimes to get going. These things to kind of evolve on us, and that's what we have right now. with some spins within the Doppler radar. So let me go ahead and go back on over to our storm relative velocity mode. Again, not much radius to the new tornado warning, to be honest. Higher area of spin looks to be near 75 around Kendrick, but you just never know in these tropical setups. As we get down toward the south, watching some action here. Looks like the circulation down there is going to track toward Moss Bluff and southeast Marion. In the next 10 minutes, they might go ahead and issue a tornado warning for southeastern Marion County, is the indication I'm kind of gathering by that statement here in the chat session. So I got to watch out for that here toward southeastern parts of Marion County. Going to see how things go in terms of that. Though right now we're on a bad spot within the Doppler radar algorithm as we look back up toward the north here, seeing a threat for a possible tornado there as we look toward areas around Orange Lake and Micanopy. Really getting more toward Micanopy if there's anything in there, but again, a higher spin rate down further toward the south. So going to be watching out for that, of course. Let's go ahead and switch you on over now as we go between some different modes. You see our big picture. You see that moisture starting to spread out from the south to the north, and then as we go on now toward radar scope, you see the wind here, brighter colors as we get down toward I-75 in Marion County. So gotta watch out for that to see if that prompts a tornado warning. You see not much wind, the tornado warning polygon, but you always gotta treat tornado warning seriously, all polygons seriously here, because maybe there's something in here we're just not able to see within a Doppler algorithm, so that can happen sometimes, especially in this area as we're so far away from the Doppler radar site, or any Doppler radar site for that matter. And it looks like a new tornado warning has been issued now. This one goes till 5 a.m. as we're getting down here toward Moss Bluff, moving north at 40 miles an hour, so a possible tornado in this area now. A possible spin moving on in. It's not going to show up on this map yet, but we'll move it on up to our other source as we're watching things, of course, tracking things very carefully in the Weather Center this morning. So we now have 2 tornado warnings in the market area. We need to go ahead and get you guys into shelter as we're watching the storm itself off toward the west here, getting some of that friction maybe to try to get going with these spins within the Doppler radar. Not seeing a whole bunch, honestly, but Weather Service in Jacksonville is deciding to issue some more warnings, so I got to take them seriously, of course. You just never know in this tropical setup, as we just now got an aerial flood warning for parts of Dixie, Lafayette there, as well as Taylor counties until 4:30 this afternoon because of that heavy rainfall we were talking about. So that's just popping into our system now. Got to be watching out for that potential. But as we go on over now toward our other system, you can see we have some spins. We're going to be tracking them, of course. We're keeping you the latest. We're not seeing a whole bunch, but the Weather Service has decided to continue the tornado warnings here toward the south here in north central Florida. 5 a.m. is the expiration time, so got to take them seriously. You got to treat every polygon seriously, of course. As we're looking down toward the south, we're going to go ahead and zoom back on out. You can kind of see some of our river flood warnings as well toward the Santa Fe. That'll be a threat we'll be watching throughout the day here as well with this system, with this overall threat. As we look back down toward north central Florida, you can see here we're watching things very carefully within the radar algorithms, within our storm relative velocity, to see if there's any spin that pops on up. We're not seeing a whole bunch right now. We're going to keep you updated. We're going to take a break in the coverage for the time being. Be back here in about 5 minutes or so. So just stay with me. Stay tuned as I'm going to go ahead and switch over to a different radar real quick. You see the storm system off toward the west. A new advisories to be coming out soon from the National Hurricane Center. As Weather Service Tallahassee was just saying, they've issued an aerial flood warning for Dixie there, as well as Lafayette County there, and even over toward a portion of Taylor County as well. You can kind of get the picture there with the expectation that flooding is going to develop across the area gradually as heavy rain falls on top of already saturated conditions, and that the rain rate to become especially heavy or persistent, then flash flood warnings could be issued as needed throughout the day. Of course, those are more urgent. Right now, the most urgent warnings in play are tornado warnings, one for parts of Marion, another for parts of Marion and Alachua. They both continue till 5 a.m., and we'll be back in about 5 minutes. Back here in the Weather Center, getting the latest radar scans in toward our system. Watching these tornado warnings in play, and I do have a little bit better look at some of these circulations here that are trying to get going on radar scope. Now we're seeing them a little bit better defined as we're looking toward the most southern polygon. So let's go ahead and switch you on over toward that other source here, and you'll be able to kind of see what I'm talking about. We do have some spin here, at least, as we're looking northeast of the villages and just a very, very southern tip of our viewing circle. But you can see what I'm circling, outlining here for you. So we have to watch out to see if something kind of gets going there. Set a quick tornado down and be a weak tornado in this setup right here, based on everything that we are noting within a Doppler algorithms. Also maybe a little something to the north here, but I will go over toward radar to kind of match things up a bit, and you can kind of see some intense pockets of rainfall here that we're tracking right now. And then we have a tornado warning for areas toward the north. I haven't been seeing much with this, but we'll go ahead and look anyway just to make sure nothing's trying to emerge. And we are seeing something to the south, but again, not really within the polygon yet. So this is off just toward the west of Reddick. You can see that spin here within our radar. I got to be watching out for this here carefully to see if maybe something evolves toward the north. The actual polygon itself, we're not seeing a lot. I think they might be tracking something over here, but there's just not a whole bunch there right now. But always got to treat tornado warning seriously. We're going to keep you updated, of course, on this threat. Zooming back on out, that rainfall starting to move up. It's going to make it a little nastier out there as we're looking towards Stark, for instance. You can see here that rain starting to move in, but the worst of the weather still going to be starting around 6 a.m. or so, is what I was saying last night. I think that's still pretty accurate, as we have some of this action from the south here trying to come in toward the picture. So going to be watching out for that. We're not seeing too much in the way of wind here on the northern periphery right now, and that's good news, of course. But we're going to keep watching, keep tracking things here in the Weather Center. Again, just watching things, the grand scheme. In fact, let's go ahead and take a look at Cedar Key. We have the weather stem camera and Cedar Key fire weather stem camera, and you can see here what's going on out that way. Looking outside right now, you see the rain on the camera lens, so we got to be watching just to see how that ponding of the water on the roadway sets up, and then adds to be a flooding threat. And then the power outage there, we've talked about it increasing there last night. And I haven't really seen maybe as much as we thought we would see in terms of power outages to the south, as winds haven't been quite as robust as they could have been, and that's obviously great news. So maybe not quite as bad up here, but we'll see, because the whole storm will be on land here later on. So some of the brunt of the accident could be felt up here in northern Florida. Still watching things behind the scenes. Just kind of trying to keep you updated here on these tornado warnings. We would have waited here and started our coverage if we didn't have these tornado warnings, but we're on right now to track them, because that's how we always do it here at Cloud Weather, keeping you up to date as this action eventually moving up here toward the north. So I gotta watch out for that, of course. Right now, some of this action individually, though, I've been back off toward the west, as you can see with our arrows here. So just have to be kind of mindful. Weather Service talking about a little more favorable threat for some tornadic action. So we have to just be careful here what can happen in this setup. Things do look a little bit more robust here off toward the west of Reddick, but that's not actually in the tornado warning. And then as we do look toward the tornado warning, then we have a spin here as we're looking just to the southeast of Silver Spring Shores. Silver Spring Shores there, watching that, of course, within our radar algorithms. So we're going to keep you updated here, keep you abreast of the situation. Zooming back out, there's our storm. You actually see a little bit better organized, maybe. So you just never know what can happen. That's within radar. Now, satellite not that organized. And we'll get an update. The wind's maybe down even from 70 because the pressure's been going up. It'll be interesting to see what they say here in that 5 o'clock update. But it looks like the center maybe in here, if my eyes aren't deceiving me. Just kind of getting things going for the morning here. So I haven't done a lot of research on the storm itself. I've got some sleep here a little bit during the night. But you can kind of see here, there's what looks to be a center trying to get going here. We're going to be watching things carefully, of course. We'll be tracking this, as that movement is something to monitor, obviously. As we go back on over to our other system, the movement here, I'm going to check the update. I think it was off toward the north at 14 with the storm itself. So that's kind of helpful in this situation, because we can kind of get a gauge for when landfall might occur. So let me go ahead and go back on over. I may be misanalyzing this because I haven't had a chance to really catch up here since we jumped right into things with these tornado warnings popping up this morning. But we're about 45 miles away. It looks like on landfall. That means 3 hours, meaning the 8 a.m. intermediate advisory. Maybe when we have the landfall called or somewhere in that time frame. So that's pretty much on target here based on what we've been talking about. That would make sense. So you see that. This might go a little bit west of this point, but if it did do that, then the way the coast is set up here, it might take a little longer for that landfall to occur if we kind of see a little bit different position here of this. That's something to watch out for, of course. We're watching things very carefully, going between all our systems. We don't have our camera up right now since it's dark out there, but again, watching things carefully here this morning. Just keeping you again abreast of the situation, going between so many different sources that we do have at our disposal here. So we just want you to be kind of mindful of what's happening with this. Be mindful of what's going on. We're going to be keeping you updated here on this, keeping you up to date on what's going on here with the overall threat. But depending on where it goes, east or west, it'll either make landfall a little bit earlier, a little bit later, because of the way the coast is. Obviously, if it goes a little bit further to the east, that means could have a landfall a little bit sooner, theoretically. So we'll be watching out for that here. Going ahead and zooming back on out. You do see here our threat, our tornado watch doesn't technically include Alachua, but we have the tornado warning in play. So we're watching out for that, of course. We have the other tornado warning down toward the south as well. So let's go ahead and kind of investigate things a little bit further now. You see the spin here as we try to look for something within our radar. It's showing up just a little bit toward the north. But we're not seeing a whole bunch here overall. So that's good news, of course. If we had a tornado, it'd be on the very weak side. I do believe in that 60-mile-an-hour range probably with the winds. So that'd be some good news, obviously, as we just have areas of weak rotation. They would generally, the weather service in Jackson, were not warned for these, to be honest. The very first one we had here this morning, that was enough to meet that tornado warning criteria in terms of that spin. But since then, just not seeing a whole bunch out there, honestly. But you never know. It's nighttime. Don't want to get people caught off guard here. So we're watching things carefully. We're on the edge of the radar, so maybe something's happening at the surface we're not aware of, and we're going to be getting reports in later on. You just got to take all these warnings seriously here. You do see a little bit of spin on the edge of this warning still. We're looking west of Reddick, tracking that potential here. You see as we're looking toward the east of Ocala here, maybe a little bit of spin as well. Southeast of Silver Spring Shores. So we're going to keep watching things. Take another 5-minute break here in the coverage as we continue to watch some tornado warnings in play on this Wednesday morning. Back here in the Weather Center, tracking some tornado warnings that continue for another 6 minutes. They may get extended. We'll just see what the Weather Service in Jacksonville decides to do as we're watching these spins within the radar. They're pretty broad and weak in nature, but maybe a weaker tornado trying to evolve, touch down for a brief period. We just have to kind of wait and see here as we're watching things. As we get down toward Marion County, you see here a couple areas of weak rotation. Generally, these would be significant weather advisory type scenarios, but we're checking the chat here. We're still checking in for the latest information, and we still have tornado warnings on the board. Excuse me, as I'm trying to go ahead and just make sure we get the latest information here in to our weather center. Just want to make sure we're not missing anything here. I was checking for debris to make sure there's not something popping out, because we've had weak circulations before in areas of the country, not necessarily around here, that we have tornadoes touch down and you have to issue these warnings, but I'm not seeing a whole bunch. There may be something down to the south, but not really well to find. I don't think there's any debris with this showing up. It would have to be a stronger tornado to show up too, and that's one of the reasons that Weather Service Jackson was probably just issuing these, because they're not really sure what's happening closer down to the surface here. They're kind of just trying to do the best they can here, the best they can, because we're looking higher up within the storms. We'll watch something here toward northwest Alachua as well, as we do see here. Maybe something trying to evolve there as well with some type of circulation, as we just got a new update in from the National Hurricane Center. So let me go ahead and check that out while we're on here. I'll go ahead and give you that information. We'll go ahead and kind of broaden the view out here on our other source. So let me go ahead and switch you over there again as we kind of are going between some of our different systems here. You can see not much at all in South Georgia, but you see our storm system, our new track, our new update here. The latest information does have this here. It looks like as a 65-mile-per-hour tropical storm, and they have dropped the hurricane warning for the west coast. So it's been replaced with a tropical storm warning now for the west coast of Florida for the most part. Though they have kept a little bit of it in here, it looks like. So just kind of reading over this with you live, they have gone ahead and kept a little bit of this in there up toward the Steinhatchee River. So we still have a couple areas in our viewing circle under a hurricane warning. So they are keeping this. I'm a little surprised, but you never know what can happen here with these storms as they get closer toward landfall. So we're just checking the information as it just kind of comes on out here from the Hurricane Center. I'm reading this live pretty much, so bear with me here. But again, the latest update has us as a 65-mile-an-hour tropical storm. The hurricane warning's been dropped for some of the area, but other areas still under it here as we get closer toward the Steinhatchee River. So we have to watch for that threat. Looking here, tropical storm warning in effect here, as well as we're getting over toward areas of the East Coast as well, from the mouth of the St. Mary's River to Little River Inlet as well. So going to be watching out there. Tropical storm watch up toward parts of South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia. That's in play too. So information just coming off as we're talking to you. Expecting a tropical storm here at landfall, but they're keeping the hurricane warning for parts of the coast just to be on the safe side here, because you never know what can happen. So watching out, of course, with this, keeping an eye on everything that's going on. So to be precise here, we're talking about parts of Citrus, parts of Levy, and parts of Dixie still under the hurricane warning, because right there at the coast, you never know, a gust maybe to 75 as we were forecasting. We're not going to be planning on changing those impacts here once we get into that a little bit later on. In fact, since we're not going to change them, I'll go ahead and just pop it on up here. I'll go ahead and switch sources. We're going to wait a little longer to get into this here with our special coverage, but since we had this tornadic action pop one up a little bit earlier, let's go ahead and kind of talk about some of these threats here this morning. Just going to kind of keep things in play here overall with our threat outlooks for the time being. At this point, I don't want to really change them too much. So let's go over to where the Stark area. If you're just waking up around Stark, let's say our threats here. 40 to 50 mile an hour winds sustained possible with gusts to 60, worst between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. Peaking around noon, it looks like, with that isolated tornado threat around. So power outage threat now. It was increasing last night. I think it's kind of held steady state, or maybe dropped just a little bit based on what we've seen with the storm structure. But still, a tornado obviously can knock out power. And we're going to have some power outages, scattered power outages, I would think more or last night I was thinking maybe more to over 50% even, but right now I would go with scattered power outages into Bradford County here. We'll keep an eye on this situation now with the impacts of the storm as it does evolve. Keeping an eye on the tornado warnings there and probably for another minute. We'll see what the Weather Service in Jacksonville decides to do. As we go over to our peak wind gust forecast now, we were talking about last night into early Thursday with this threat here. I'm talking about those winds 65, 75 miles an hour possible and the highest gust toward Gainesville, toward the coastal zones. We'll just have to see what happens. May not quite get to some of these numbers because the structure of the storm not as organized as it was, which is great news. But we're keeping an eye on things here in the Weather Center. We're keeping an eye on the grand scheme here. You see, I zoomed on into some of the other spots like City, Columbia County, Alachua County with some of the higher winds. Even if maybe we just barely get to these numbers here in one isolated spot, or maybe don't reach these numbers, these areas here in the yellow would have the higher winds in general overall. Sometimes in these setups you'll get some higher winds at the coastal zones, but and toward even the East Coast, but this storm maybe not going to have that type of structure to be able to do that. I know Irma did, but this is a different setup than Irma. We were talking last night. Most of you guys here watching aren't going to have anything really to that Irma level here. But right to the immediate west coast, if we were to get some hurricane conditions, it could be a little bit worse than we've seen in some past storms there in some very isolated spots. So keeping that forecast together right now, as we have seen the tornado warnings drop off the board. It looks like I haven't got any new information from the Weather Service, so we'll find out if they are going to extend these here in just a moment. Right now it doesn't look like it, which would be some great news. And we've seen just some broad circulations here over the last little bit, so don't think they warn an extension, but we'll just wait and see. Let's go over here. You're just seeing some really broad, weak areas of spin within the atmosphere. Haven't seen any reports yet. It doesn't mean there hasn't been something that might have touched down real quick. Might not even realize it till after sunrise, or maybe the reports haven't gone into chat yet. Might end up having a local storm report. You just never know here in this setup. Right when we had that first spin, right before I got on the air here, about an hour ago, that spin had kind of tightened on up more. That was a tornado, TPS signature type spin there. So you just have to kind of be mindful of what can happen here. We could have something spin back up. We'll be watching throughout the day. I'm going to give them another couple minutes here to see if we have any new information. If we don't, we'll wrap the coverage here and kind of gather things and try to set on up here for extended coverage. We're planning to go every half hour with coverage here, and then on a specific live stream, and then on that same live stream, and then doing more extended coverage as needed when we have tornado warnings and we have maybe enhanced wind threats or landfall. You kind of get the idea. We'll kind of play it by ear on that. But again, watching here right now, no tornado warnings on the board. We do have some heavy rains. That could be kind of problematic headed on out there. Maybe to work, something like that, if you have to go out. Some jobs maybe not wanting you to go on in today, as we're looking toward North Central Florida, depending on where you're at, though, toward Jacksonville. Not necessarily the case, as there's no official tropical storm watches or warnings toward Duval County. So maybe a different type of situation overall. We do have state of emergency in play here. So that's something to be mindful of as we're watching the storm system. We're a few hours out from landfall. We're looking off the Jacksonville radar. You can see that center of circulation some as we're looking off of Citrus County, Hernando County. Eventually going to be watching some of the worst conditions move towards Cedar Keys. So let me go back on over to the east now. Weather Service now saying multiple cells with weak rotation are moving across Marion, and conditions are marginally favorable for funnel clouds or brief touchdowns as the cells progress northward and northwestward, really across northwestern, let me say that again, northern Marion, but also even northwestern Marion, and then into southern Alachua County as well. So going to be watching. We're going to give them another minute to see if they add anything new, because it seems like some of our alerts have been a little delayed depending on what source we're looking at, but I don't think they're going to add anything right now, but they're pretty close. I'm sure they have some polygons drawn on up here to issue at a moment's notice if something ramps back on up, but right now just not seeing a whole lot. I just hate to go and then have something pop up and then it would take us a few minutes to get back on. That's why I'm kind of keeping you here for a little bit longer to make sure something doesn't happen. But right now, this is not an imminent threat for a tornado. These storms do not look like they're capable of producing an imminent threat here. If anything were to allow, it would be a weak, low-end type brief tornado. That can't be ruled out since we're further from the radar. Weather Service talking about that they've switched the radar over as well as the primary rain bands moving in the southern part of the forecast area now. So they switched over to the ZR relationship to tropical, as the convective one tends to underdo those rainfall estimates and tropical cyclones. So something to kind of know about there in terms of inside baseball information. So kind of get a better idea, because those rainfall rates will be pretty high here. Efficient rainfall producers here this morning. So I have to be cognizant of that. We're looking by I-75 over the last hour, seeing some of that try to add on up. I know we're going to be getting some of those numbers to add on up here in our system. Right now, no active tornado warnings. Great news. We're going to wrap it up for now, but back here as needed, probably closer to 7 with long form coverage at this point, depending on how things set up as we get things together. We're just going to play it by ear. I don't want to give too many specific times. Of course, if a tornado warning pops up, we have to break in immediately here to provide you that coverage. Special weather statement in place. So they just see that. So right now, it's a situation they're watching areas of spin, but nothing imminent in terms of maybe a tornado threat here, but maybe a funnel cloud, something like that here toward parts of Alachua, Marion, Gilchrist counties here this morning. I'll be watching, we're tracking. Stay tuned for the latest.